going to discuss another one of our discussion board articles. I hope you enjoyed reading it, as most of these are considered classics in the field of sociology, and I hope that you're thinking not only of what you're reading but how it applies elsewhere. Today's article was entitled Body Ritual Among the Nacirema, and it was written by Horace Minor. And most of our articles are a little bit older, and this is no exception. But Horace Minor does do a very good job of describing in detail the practices of a very seemingly strange and barbaric group of people known as the nacirema. And these group of people were first described by Ralph Linton, and then our article later today, written by Horace Minor, picked up on some of these observations that were noticed even before Minor wrote. Now, going back to Linton, he described these people who live between Canada and Mexico, and they have a hero called Notgenshaw, who is responsible in part for the origins of this group of people somewhere in the East. But this leader's past events involved a cherry tree, and its demise are noted for the reader. And so that starts to make us say, wait a minute, where have I heard that before? And at the end of the article, I do want to reveal something to you, but I'll save it till then if you haven't already noticed. Alright, but going on, the characteristics describing this mysterious group of people include a market economy, a free market economy. The people are driven to really make money every day in every way they can. Financial gain is their goal in life. They're not shy about it. These people are also very concerned with their bodies and how they look. It seems that it's something innate that they believe that the body is ugly, it's inferior, and it needs all types of treatments and remedies to help make up for all these problems. Their homes are filled with centers to help alter their appearance and make it better. Families that are well off have multiple shrines, as Minor calls it, in which they engage in all types of activities of beautification. Minor also describes the multiple objects that these shrines contain. They have special people called medicine men who write down formulas for these naciremans. These are given out commonly, and then people put their trust and money and faith in these medicine men and the potions that they prescribe for them. The medicine men always receive a gift for their services to the nacirema. Now, below the shrine that we talked about in their dwellings is a font in which these naciremans bow each day while making use of the water which collects in these fonts. The water is splashed over the face from one time to many times, and only clean water is used. They never use anything other than clean water. There's another group of specialists in this society called the Holy Mouth Men, and they examine the nacirema's mouths and teeth on a regular basis, constantly, sometimes 2 or more times per year, and if problems arise, even more frequently. The nacirema believe if they don't do this, then their teeth would fall out, their gums would bleed, and then this would just create chaos in their social relationships and not lead to any good thing. They use hog hairs to put in their mouth along with magical powders to make their teeth look better, to make the odor less bad, to make it pleasing to others in social interaction, and hopefully to keep their teeth as long as they can. So as I said before, sometimes this is not enough, and then sometimes their teeth have to be removed with magical materials or somewhat repaired with unusual materials. And the Holy Mouth Men, the whole purpose of seeing them is to prevent this tooth decay, but it seems sadly that their teeth, the nacirema's teeth, still decay after all this effort. Some other practices that are described in the article show the men, the nacirema men, but they practice scraping and lacerating or cutting their faces with sharp instruments. The women are no exception. They may not do that, but they perform a monthly rite, just once a month, and then they also bake their heads in ovens for up to an hour. And so, you know, what's going on with these people? Why do they like pain? Why are they so unhappy with their bodies? You know, Minor is trying to get us to think of that, and I'm sure probably it's going through your mind right now. Now, in many communities of the Nacirema, they have something called the leptipso. And so, for example, often they have men or women at the leptipso who wear distinctive costume and headdresses. And then for those who are ailing, they come in and are treated by these men and women who are found at the leptipso. Now, many people spend different amounts of times in there. Some get well, some don't. Some people die. It's where children are born. But again, you have a special class of people that in order to gain access to the leptipso, a gift must be given, no matter how minor or serious the emergency may be. The longer you stay, the more gifts you are expected to give under Nacirema culture. So a lot of time these women, there's more women that work there than men, and they require that those entering the leptipso take off their clothes and often be available for constant observation day or night, scrutiny, manipulation, and prodding by the medicine men. So often the medicine men come into these leptipsos as well as the maidens or men who can be found there in their costumes and dress. Now, additionally, the medicine men subject them to all types of commands that the Nacirema just readily obey most of the time. So that could include forcing them to lie down, eat substances that may not taste good. They often have tools or wands that they wave into the Nacirema's mouth from time to time. They poke their skin with steel, cut their flesh, and still this does not deter many of the Nacirema from coming and trusting what the medicine men suggest to do for their bodies. Another type of medicine man for the Nacirema culture is the listener, who doesn't work with bodily problems, so works with problems with those who seem to be bewitched or might engage in activities very close to exorcism. Now, other techniques that the Nacirema use beside these two, the physical and the exorcism type activities, include fast. They refrain from food and drink in order to make people thin, and then they often have feasts to make people fat. And for example, women who are unhappy with their bodies can have their breasts enlarged, for example. The Nacirema is a strange culture from the aspect that they try to hide pregnancy a lot of times. And then those functions, bowel functions, are often considered very private and often go into different rooms to hide it from one another. I mean, these are the processes of elimination that we would most recognize them as. The final thing that Miner wants us to recognize is, how could people who seem so strange and obsessed, how could they have existed so long? So this certainly is a culture that's been around for hundreds of years. Now, I'll give you one last thought, and then you can formulate your response and post it into Blackboard. But the Nacirema is actually talking about you and me. This is America spelled backwards, or American spelled backwards. So after all this time, if you hadn't caught that, that's exactly what Miner is up to. Many of the words in the article that I've used, from the leptipso and on, are simply hospital spelled backwards or other things like that. The medicine men or doctors, those that listen, are relative to our psychiatrist or our psychologist. The hog hairs is reminiscent of our toothbrush and some of the early components of how those items were made of, or what they were made of. So again, an interesting article. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope that was a surprise for you. But now you know it, and if you want to share that with someone else, you can, to return the favor.